Good evening. I'm Gail Teresi, Consul Pro Temp, sitting in for our Consul President Diane Snyder, who is unavailable this evening. This is our Committee of the Whole. It is 6:30 p.m., and I will call the Committee of the Whole meeting to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Balstria.
Present.
Mr. DeJohn.
Here.
Mr. Mano.
Here.
Mr. Monaco.
Here.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Here.
Mrs. Snyder. Mrs. Teresi.
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have enough room? The purpose of our Committee of the Whole meeting this evening is to provide an update on the Mayland project and its infrastructure. Do we have a presenter this evening? Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Michael Oceanero. My address is 5260 River Trail in Lyndhurst, Ohio. And I am present with Larry Otino, who is the lead developer on the Mayland project. First of all, we sincerely appreciate the opportunity to make a brief presentation tonight. I'm going to try to make it real quick and just try to bring you all up to date on where we are. It's exciting to see the equipment out on Mayfield Road, and Mayfield Road getting opened up, and with new water lines and whatnot coming in. I thought Larry has talked individually, I think, with every single person in this room. We together met with the mayor and with Karen and Lorna last week to try to, bring some knowledge of where we are and where we've been. I really thought it would be best for those who, just to be reminded, I guess, is the best way to put it. Our journey, ours being Larry's and mine, and our co-partner, Ray Negrelli, began back in October of 2021. It began back in October of 2019. What was the status of the property at that time? Well, Mayland was blighted. We're talking about 13 acres. There's no other way to explain it other than it was a blighted, vacant property that was an eyesore in the city of Mayfield Heights. It really was, in our opinion, a stain on the city and its image. There were no substantial leases on the property. There were very few employees working at the businesses that were open. There were 3 different property owners of the 13 acres. The Costanzo family, the Tracy with the Boneyard property, Tracy Civillo, and then, of course, the rear property of O'Reilly's, as O'Reilly's had offered the rear property for sale. There were environmental issues on the existing buildings. I know that Mrs. Teresi, you were very concerned about that at the time we started the demolition. On top of that, we had an oil and gas well right in the middle of the property, which impeded development. We had countless easements. The Boneyard property was underperforming. The restaurant was on the verge of closing. And as I mentioned, O'Reilly's was selling. All of this situation 2 years ago, almost to the day, was pointing to years of problems on the horizon for both the city, the residents, enforcement, fire, and almost every entity that is concerned about the city. Larry walks into the picture because he was a friend of Nikki Zalessi, Sam Costanzo's sister, a native-born son of Mayfield Heights with a history of development. I don't need to tell you folks about the Otino name and the Otino family. You all know better than I do. He organizes a team to help, me included, from a legal standpoint, Mr. Negrelli from a real estate standpoint. And based upon, I think, a lot of experience that the three of us have had, both Ray and I are substantial property owners of commercial property in Mayfield Heights as well as throughout Northeast Ohio. Larry, everyone knows what he's done with Mayfield Town Center, Panera's, and other properties. What we were facing at that time, I think, was extremely challenging expectations from the city. And I don't mean just the governmental members of the city, I mean the residents of the city. Everyone was concerned about Mayland. We were faced with some difficult zoning issues, specifically the Mayfield Heights Commercial Corridor Design Manual, which was a good thing, but which limited development of such a large parcel of property. Superimposed on all of that, 60 days after Larry signed contracts, was the COVID-19 pandemic and the financial challenges that presented. It would have been very easy for Larry at that point in time to sign one contract with a grocery store, a car dealer, a big box user, or start a new Mayfield Road small unit project, and which already dot Mayfield Road from Cleveland Heights to Mayfield Heights, and which unfortunately presents vacancy problems and so on. Or he could try to develop a project in the spirit of the design manual. So what happens? Well, to develop these 13 acres, Larry has to get it all under contract. He accomplishes that. He has to get equity and financing, which he accomplishes. He has to do a demolition, which was a nightmare, to say the least, including serious asbestos issues and abatement issues which had to be performed. I don't have to tell you what that property looked like, what the asphalt looked like, what the parking lot looked like, what the buildings looked like, to know how tough of a job that all was. But most importantly of all, trying to keep his eye on the big picture, he had to come up with a development plan. He got repeated promises from many of the folks in this room that we're behind you, we're with you, we're going to help you, we're going to do what we can do to help, and that has happened. From the building inspector to the fire chief to the police department, the mayor's office, the finance director's office, the planning commission. We've received assistance, we've received help. And what did we end up with as a result? We ended up with a development plan that includes 4 what we consider very nice commercial lots on Mayfield Road. One is about 1.8 acres, the other 3 are just less than 1 acre. And a development plan that calls for a 2-acre private roadway running through the middle of, through the middle entrance and the rear of the property. You've all seen the renderings, and that's what's being done right now. So what will it look like exactly? Well, the new entrance off Mayfield Road with the existing light at Mayfield Ridge. There will be a continued access off Mayfair. The idea is to make the whole development pedestrian-friendly, to build wider sidewalks than would be normally planned for a development like this. There will be appropriate upgraded lighting. There's the use of pavers instead of just asphalt to prevent an asphalt jungle look on the whole development. We have commissioned a very well-known architect and sculptor in the Cleveland area to begin design work on what can only be called as a visible monument, which will be at the end of the roadway leading into the development and visible from Mayfield Road. Something to really put a wow factor. But you have to find the right users too. And this is where the challenges start. And because if you forget about the big box users, if you forget about the small retail users, now you're limiting your market, and on top of all that, you have the pandemic to deal with when many folks just aren't making the financial commitment that they used to make to developments like this. We happen to be, as developers, very proud of what we've done so far. Starbucks is open. They are already successful. They have hired at least 30 to 35 people. They are creating jobs, creating income, creating sales, and we're very proud of that. Sheetz is next in line. Raising Canes is right behind them. What do those two folks bring to the equation? Number one, they really wanted to be in Mayfield Heights. That's a tribute, I think, to this city, to this community, and to all of you sitting in this room. They wanted to be here so bad, they totally changed their design standards to meet the design manual criteria, which was surprising to us. We thought we were going to lose both of them as we went through the process. They wanted to be here. They are, between Starbucks, Sheetz, and Raising Cane's, three huge companies, billions of dollars in sales, making major commitments to the city upon their opening. Others are interested in the remaining front lot. We don't have a user yet. We've entertained about 5 letters of intent, and I'm going to come back to that a little bit later in my presentation. So what does this all mean to the city of Mayfield Heights? Well, let's look at the immediate effect of Starbucks with the employees. Sheetz, even more. Raising Cane's, the impact that it has had on other communities, the donations that they make, the people that they employ. They're good neighbors. They're all good people. These 3 stores alone, Starbucks, Sheetz, and Raising Cane's, will combined have more employees than all of Mayland Plaza had when we acquired in 2019. Just those 3 stores. We're not talking about the rear 7 acres, and we're not talking yet about the extra lot that hasn't been leased yet. I don't necessarily want to be quoted on this exactly, but I took a real hard look at the impact on real estate taxes. I know from our presentation with Karen and the mayor last week that the city gets a small piece of the real estate taxes, but I think it's important to the overall development that you understand what is happening. In 2019, when we acquired Mayland, the land was on the county books, fair market value, not assessed value, fair market value, $3,645,000. All of the buildings at Mayland were on the books at $3,251,000 for a total fair market value for all 13 acres that are now under our supervision of $6,900,000. Very, very conservative estimate because of the way we have developed this property, because of the small buildings up front. We are estimating that the new fair market value evaluation for all the land, the 13 acres, will be $16 to $18 million. We estimate the total building value after, when you consider the Starbucks, the Sheetz, the Raising Cane's, the vacancy, and whatever goes on in the back, will be at approximately $16 to $18 million. Meaning, we have taken $6,900,000 in evaluation and increased it to $32 to $36 million. These are conservative estimates. I'm not Karen and I have had many talks. I am not an expert on economic development. I cannot begin to totally describe the financial impact to the city. But when you look at the real estate taxes, when you look at the number of employees that are going to end up being present, it's going to have a very positive impact. Now comes, in Italian, we say ma, M-A. That means but. So here is the ma, here is the but. The economic reality of where we are. We are at a real financial hardship at this point right now. And that doesn't mean the project is in financial straits. Everything is fine, but the economic reality has set in. In order to achieve everything that I've just talked about, beyond the normal development that you would do, Larry has been required to add substantial infrastructure development. What does that mean? Well, instead of a big piece of property, think about Mayfield and Green when they developed that project where the Marks is right now. They didn't have to construct new roadways and do the things that we are doing here in Mayfield Heights. The first thing we did is we have dedicated 2 valuable acres to a common area roadway. This isn't just an access road. I mean, this is a roadway. It is going to have pavers, it's going to have sidewalks, it's going to render the development what the city anticipated in their design manual as pedestrian friendly. In addition to the construction of that interior roadway and the dedication of two acres of land to it, we have to install all new water, sanitary sewers, stormwater systems, lighting that goes with the pedestrian-friendly sidewalks, not just big Hell Arts dealership lights that light up a parking lot. Ingress and egress points, the new monument sign, landscaping. We are mindful of the design manual, and by putting the buildings up toward the street, we still wanted to create barriers. This was the subject of a lot of discussion at the Planning Commission and at the Architectural Review Board. We are putting in world-class landscaping. Finally, we had to acquire an oil well. That's another whole issue, and I won't go into all the details on that, but the oil well had about 20 to 25 partners, and they all had to be dealt with to acquire it because that oil and gas well was right in the middle of the property and would have prevented any building within 100 feet. Total infrastructure cost, $4 to $5 million. So, Larry is looking to partner in some way with the city on the infrastructure cost. He's looking for help on the infrastructure cost. Why? Well, he's been turning away users. I mentioned the 5 letters of intent on the other parcel of land on Mayfield Road. Larry didn't think they would fit in with the vision that the city had and that, frankly, he has on what the end product he wants to look like. Against my advice and against the advice of our other partner, he's holding out. He's not taking the easy way and just grabbing any financial deal that comes along because he wants to see something that all of the people in this room, the residents of the city of Mayfield Heights, deserve. We want the image of the new Mayland, which we're not calling it Mayland. We're not calling it anything yet, but we're going to get there soon. Mayfield Commons. We want it to be what everybody wants, but we have reached a financial extra expense, and it's time to start talking seriously on what we can do to make the project now finish as good as it has begun. I'm happy to answer any questions. That's really my whole presentation. Went a little bit longer than even I thought it would. And Larry would like to answer any questions as well.
Excuse me, does anyone on Consul have any questions for Mr. Oceanero? Mayor, would you like to, I'm sorry, Mr. Balustria. Mayor, would you like to add anything?
Mike, I just had a question. What is your gut feeling about prospective tenants? I know it's kind of a open-end question, but I know there's some tenants that have intent to come, but
We have turned down so far a car wash, an oil change facility, another tire store. We have another restaurant, national restaurant, for the other lot on Mayfield Road, similar to Raising Cane's, but a different product line, that we have counter-proposed. Nothing else yet. We've had huge fitness facilities wanting to go in the back. We've totally discouraged that. We get calls every day from housing folks, every day, and we have said, nope, we made a commitment to the city, we will not put housing there, whether it be apartments or any other form of housing. So that's the challenge. This is where we're at right now. No, we don't have anything else. I wish we did. But it's been my advice to Larry that as soon as that road starts going in and people see the Raising Cane's coming out of the ground, and the sheets start their construction, which I believe is February 15th, that we're very hopeful that the phone will start to ring. The challenge on this property is that very simply, it's west of Lander Road. To many users, east of Lander and west of 271 is the place to be. Just west of Lander Road presents just a few more challenges than other property would. But that's why we're trying to make it a mini legacy village, we're trying to create that atmosphere. We're trying to do what the city envisioned when they had that design manual done for the corridor.
Mike, as a developer, do you see this COVID trend tailing off? You see people maybe more interested now, maybe loosening up the purse strings, or maybe we're still in it?
I think, Mike, it is starting, but you know what we're noticing? It's changing. If you look at even what Starbucks did. Now, I happen to be involved with 4 Starbucks locations. The big change that I saw was, and you've all seen it when you walk into this new Starbucks here, all the orders that are placed on the counter, ready for pickup, people put them in their phones. Instead of even going through the drive-thru, they park, they go in, they pick up their stuff, and they go. You've seen that with McDonald's, with the dining room closed for all this time. So my point is, things are changing. Designs are changing. We saw that with the Architectural Review Board on the need for parking. That's changing because people's experience with neighborhood plazas are changing. So, but yes, I think things are opening up a little bit financially, but we got a ways to go.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
I can say that I'm attending the ICSC show, which is the International Shopping Center Council. And typically, every year, they do 2 big shows, one in May in Las Vegas, one in New York. So I will be there the next week. And I can tell you that I did a webinar with the president of ICSC, and they have more people attending this retail show in December in Las Vegas than they had last year, 2019, forget last year, 2019. They have more people attending this year than they did in 2019 in New York, so that's really a very good sign. They anticipate 10,000 people attending this show next week. So that's a good sign that retailers are back out and looking at different avenues, different cities, different spaces. So hopefully 2022 will bring some new retailers to this area. That's what we can hope for.
Take some info with you. Take some info with you.
Yeah, I could. I mean, yeah.
I think Larry would like to make a comment, if that's okay.
You know what I'd like to say is, we're trying to get what the master plan originally called for without the apartments and living. Right now, there are people starting to come out, starting to inquire. But they all know every developer has blank land and they're working their hardest steel to get in. I mean, we have a restaurant, I can say it right, not the name, but we have a restaurant that wants to come in, but they want us to give them $500,000 just to come in. I mean, I have the Mayfield Heights Town Center. I'm trying to get Handel's Ice Cream in there. They want $100,000 TIA, tenant improvement allowance. So it's not really easy to get these people to come in. We're not going to put a tire store in there. We're not going to put all the LOIs that we have. That's not what we envisioned. If we did that, we wouldn't need the roadway, we wouldn't need the landscaping, we wouldn't need the pavers, we wouldn't need the benches, we wouldn't need any of that. That's why we're coming to you and asking you for the couple $1 million for the infrastructure. Now, they say that, well, it doesn't bring, the real estate taxes don't help us that much. But it does. The schools get a lot of that real estate money. And that's what keep the values of higher values of your homes in Mayfield Heights. So it's a win-win situation for everybody, in my opinion. We took a dead piece of property and brought it back to life. It'll be beautiful. We'll have good stores. We can hang on and wait for the good tenants. We don't have to turn it into Maple Heights or East Lake, and you know what I mean? It'll be a beautiful entryway, and you have a beautiful something you can be proud of. But it won't be like the Crocker Park we wanted or Pinehurst we wanted. And thank God we don't have a Pinehurst. The bank took that over, and they're cutting deals, low rents, just to fill it up. So the other tenants don't move. There's people in there paying half the price the other people were paying because of the co-tenancy. We don't want that to happen. We'll have individual buildings, they'll have individual real estate taxes, and it'll be a beautiful park. But we need your help with the infrastructure. And I'm sure, Mrs. Tracy, you know what they did for Stark and Homestead Falls and stuff. They put in all their infrastructure. We're just asking for a piece to help. I mean, it's that simple. If there's any other questions I can answer, I'll be glad to.
Anyone else have any questions, comments for Mr. Mano?
I have a comment. First of all, Mr. Otino has a great track record. He's always been a class act, and I would look at this as an investment for the city to help you with this problem, with this project. Eventually, that money will all come back to us in, plus. So I would support helping you out with this thing and getting it on the move.
Well, thank you. I mean, if I have to make the next move, or if my partner Mike does, just let me know. I don't know where we go from here.
Oh, okay. I would concur with Mr. Mano. I've seen nothing but Mr. Otino's property do well. He's always worked with the city, with the city's best interests in mind, and I don't think he's going to fail us in any respect. And I think this is an investment on the city's part as well. And we can, like Larry, I would agree with you. It would be a win-win all the way around. The only problem is getting the people to come in when we need them to come in. You can only wait so long, right?
Right, well,
I mean, before you start making other decisions,
well,
that's,
we won't make any other decisions. We'll wait. You know what I mean, Mike? I want to have, you build it once, that's it.
right.
You know what I mean? You just have to, if you have a good product, they'll come. Even though it's West Orlando Road, like Mike says, that's a downfall with the developers. I'm talking about guys from Chicago, New York. They don't know the area. They look at the map and they draw a circle and they say, we want to be in here. You know what I mean? From the out-of-town people. But the people that are local, and I think, wasn't Raising Cane's, wasn't he from Cleveland Heights, Spike?
Yes, originally he was.
You know-
Jake Crocker,
Yeah, and he has, what, 40 of them?
45 of them.
He's got 45 Raising Cane's, and he grew up in Cleveland Heights. So he knew the area, and that's why he wanted to come here. So I don't think we'll have a problem. Like Mike says, once that roadway's in there, and the pavers, and the sculpture that this architect is gonna work on, and the lighting, and the benches, and the landscaping, Fata La Pia, they gotta come. I mean, where else are they gonna go?
It'll be the field of dreams, Larry.
Yeah, I mean, really, they wanna come on anywhere on this side of town, where are they gonna go?
That's right.
Where's there another 13-acre parcel around?
I share the vision.
Just a quick comment on Mr. Oceanero's list of stores that you didn't want to come in. I hope you're not going to have any mattress stores come in. Oh, we got 6 of them. We're going to put a mattress mall in the back 7 acres. Thanks.
Don't put that in the minutes.
Mr. Monaco, thank you.
Thank you. Larry, I remember when you purchased some dilapidated houses on Some Center Road, and now you see a beautiful shopping center there. You keep it spotless, something that the city is proud of, and I'm in favor of helping you. The only question that I have, you mentioned about the street being a private street. Will that become a public street at a certain point if the city takes it over, or?
Well, it could be, you know what I mean? We'll have discussions with the city, whatever they would like.
Okay.
You know, nobody's gonna work harder with the city than I will, you know what I mean? Whatever they wanna do. I mean,
Will
we
the
put,
city have to do snow plowing and on a road, or, I mean, if it stays private, they wouldn't have to do that, but if it's
Right.
public, then they would have to.
right, well, right now it's private.
Okay.
But we're putting the sewers in with the proper fill, that if the sewers are gonna be going to the county. And we're using the proper fill and everything, so they would be able to take it over. Now, the roadway, I don't know, we're not building it to specifications for a public street. So the city probably would never take it over.
So you're not putting heating cables under the road so that
Yeah.
the snow will
Like
melt?
they have on 271, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Mayor,
Yeah.
I see you.
After our meeting last week, we started to explore the options that the city has. So that's what we're going to do, and we'll communicate to council the options that the city has for some type of partnership with Larry. And as soon as we figure that out, we'll let you know.
All right, I appreciate it, but like, you know, time is of the essence. So whatever we could do, I would appreciate it.
Got you.
Okay?
Yep.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Otino. Thank you, Mr. Oceanero. Thank you both. Happy holidays to both of you.
Mayor, would this be in a joint meeting with administration and the subcommittee of council, or how would you handle that?
Well, once we figure out all the avenues that we have, we'll bring it to council. Absolutely. I mean, you have to.
As a whole?
Yeah, we have to approve it. So let us figure out what all the options are, and
All
then
right.
we can go from there.
Thank you. Okay, so seeing no other comments, I would like a motion to adjourn our committee of the whole. Moved by Mrs. Sabetta, seconded by Mr. Monaco. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Our committee of the whole meeting is now adjourned, and we'll take 5 minutes before we begin our council meeting. There we go. I hereby call to order the November 22nd, 2021 council meeting of the City of Mayfield Heights. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Balstraya.
Yes, here.
Mr. DeJohn.
Here.
Mr. Mano.
Here.
Mr. Monaco.
Here.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Here.
Mrs. Snyder. Mrs. Teresi.
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. We will now move on to acceptance of the minutes of our special council meeting of October 10th. I hope everyone has taken the time to look over the minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Mano, seconded by Mr. Balistraya. Are there any suggested changes, amendments, or deletions to these minutes? Seeing none, all in favor of approval of the minutes of October 10th, our special council meeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Madam Chair, I abstain as I wasn't present.
Thank you. We will now move to the acceptance of the minutes of our special council meeting of October 14th, 2021. I hope everyone has looked over these minutes. Are there any suggested changes, deletions, or amendments to the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor of the minutes as recorded, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Monaco?
Madam President, I abstain as I was not part of that meeting.
Thank you. We'll now move on. Acceptance of the minutes of our special council meeting of October 24th, 2021. Are there any suggested changes, amendments, or deletions to these minutes? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Monaco?
Again, I abstain as I was not present at the meeting.
Thank you. We will now move on to acceptance of the minutes of our Committee of the Whole meeting on November 8th, 2021. Has everyone had a chance to look over these minutes? Are there any suggested changes, amendments, deletions to the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes of our November 8th meeting are approved as written. Let's see, we have one more. Our Committee of the Whole meeting for October 8th. We will approve those minutes. Are there any changes, deletions, or amendments to our Committee of the Whole meeting held on October?
No, the council meeting.
Oh, didn't I say November 8th? Oh, I apologize, November 8th council meeting.
Right.
Okay. And the Committee of the Whole meeting was also November 8th. All in favor of approval of the minutes of our Committee of the Whole meeting on November 8th, 2021, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The minutes of our Committee of the Whole meeting of November 8th have been adopted. Now we will move on to correspondence and announcements. Does anyone on Consul have any correspondence or announcements to share? Mr. Mano.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I got a phone call, I've had a couple phone calls from parents living in the area around Lander Road School. It seems that the crossing guard that's assigned there doesn't show up every day, and when that person is there, they're paying more attention to their phone than they are to the children crossing the street. And many of the parents in that area are very irate and have taken to crossing their children themselves. Now, she said that the last caller I had said that they had talked to the school, they talked to the principal, and the principal told them that it was a police matter, and they contacted the police, and a police officer spoke with those folks and told them that they would check into it and see what was going on, but they have not heard anything back. And they're very concerned because it's now, getting into the winter months. Lander's a heavily traveled road, and there's a lot of concern about the safety of their children. So whoever this person is that's the crossing guard, if they don't want that job, it should be taken away from them. If they, from what I understand, the person is not there more than they're there. And when they are there, they're not attentive to the children, and they can't wait to leave. They leave as quickly as they can. So I would like somebody to check into that and get back to me with some information that I can get back to these people with. I think it's a serious situation, and it should be attended to quickly.
Thank you, Mr. Mano. Mayor?
Yeah, thank you. We are aware of it, and the police department is aware, and they are working on ways to rectify that, definitely, as soon as possible. So they are aware.
Thank you.
So I have some correspondence this evening. I received an email that I have been asked to read. I don't see Mr. Ward here this evening, so I will read it. Ms. Teresi, thanks for your input. I will respectfully ask you to please make sure my letters are read at the meeting. I will be at work to preserve and support the quality of life I enjoy. Why is this so important to Sean Ward? Does he even live in Mayfield Heights? Does he need this abuse of power for his resume? As a member of Council, I ask you, why has this gotten so far? As a 22-year resident of Gates Mills Boulevard, I have never once been in receipt of a questionnaire about this proposed destruction of my quality of life or any other inquiry of my opinion on what is good for my community that I pay taxes in. Where are and who are the people who think this is a good idea besides Sean? This nonsense needs to stop. The police, fire, EMS, and service department are all stretched to the max. Why would any responsible community go out of their way to diminish the quality of life of over 40 homeowners and their loved ones, diminish the property values, diminish the safety of these homeowners, and on top of that, choose to stretch our hero first responders even farther than they are already? We clearly don't want the criminal situations of Oakville Park or the Drake on Gates Mills Boulevard. What are we? Sheep being led to slaughter by the Judas goat. This is incomprehensible. This is signed Sherry and Victor Baskin. I was asked to read that, so I wanted to make sure I did that. Are there any other pieces of correspondence that need to be heard? Okay. We will move on to our reports of officers, and we will begin with Mayor DeSico.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening. Thank you all for attending this evening. Next week, the city's traditional holiday lighting ceremony has been changed to Monday. Sunday is the first day of Hanukkah, so we have moved it to Monday. That will be the 29th at 6:30. And all the festivities remain the same, so bring your family and please enjoy yourselves. As we heard before this meeting, the mainland development is moving along, and it's great to see some progress there. You see some equipment and some construction going on there with the infrastructure, so it's nice to see. Another project underway is the Kogan Dental building on Cedar Road that has begun construction for an 18,000 square foot building there. Mayfield Physical Therapy, located at 1430 Som Center Road, will add a new tenant, which is Rapid Shots, which is a hockey training facility. And the service department has completed their fall tree planting. We added 37 new trees to the city, which is nice. And lastly, the hazardous waste drop-off has ended this year, and the county is looking to change the program to collect only one time throughout the year. So when we get some more information from the county, we'll let everybody know what those changes are. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mayor. Are there any questions for the mayor? We will move on to Director of Law, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no report this evening.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Murphy? Mayor?
Madam Chair, I'm sorry. I forgot to add to my report. I see there's a lot of Gates Mills residents here and a lot of people from Gates Mills Boulevard residents and a lot of the residents who were at our meeting last Thursday on the trail. I just wanted to let you know it's not on the agenda this evening, but you're more than welcome to come up and speak. I just wanted to let you know that.
Thank you. We'll move on to reports from our Director of Finance, Ms. Fagan.
Thank you. I have no report this evening.
Thank you. We will now move on to reports of committees, commissions, and boards. We will begin with the Building Committee, which is my committee. And we are working towards setting up a meeting that will be a joint meeting between the Legislative Committee and Building, and we've been working around dates, so we don't have anything scheduled as of today, but we will get that on the calendar as soon as we can. Do you have any questions for Building? We'll move on to Finance and Audit Committee, Mr. Balistrea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No official report, but council, I believe, was copied on the 2022 city budget. I would ask the chair to send the budget to the Finance Committee to schedule a meeting for review and recommendation to council.
Thank you, Mr. Balistrea. Are there any questions for Mr. Balistrea? We'll move on to our Legislative Committee, Mr. Monaco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had no meetings, so therefore I have no report at this time.
Thank you. We will now move on to Public Works and Services. Mr. DeJohn.
Thank you, Madam President. We did have a meeting, and Mr. Bells from AECom was there, along with our city engineer, Mr. Gerson. We met with residents from the Ascot and Marnell area, and we discussed the flooding problems. We gave a chance for all those residents to speak at this meeting, and we are going to come up with a pilot program, and we should have that pilot program established, hopefully, or proposal for the pilot program established by the next meeting in December. Thank you. That concludes my reports.
Thank you, Mr. DeJohn. Are there any questions for Mr. DeJohn? We'll move on to Recreation and Parks, Mr. Mano.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mayor's Community Council will be holding the annual holiday lighting ceremony on Monday, November 29th from 6:30 to 8:30 in the fire department bays. Come out and watch the City Hall light up for the holidays. Our special guests, Santa and Mrs. Claus, will be here to take notes on your wish list. There will be a photo booth, crafts for the little ones, pastries, cider, and coffee will be available as well. This event is free to the public. Our breakfast with Santa will be held on Saturday, December 11th at the DeJohn Community Center. Tickets are $7 per person and includes pancakes and sausage breakfast, a visit and picture with Santa, a ride on the Christmas train, a craft, and more. Session times will be at 9 a.m. to 9:45 a.m. and 10:30 a.m. 9:45 to 9:45 and at 10:30 a.m. Space is limited. For more information or to register, please contact the Recreation Department at 440-442-2627. That's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Mano. Are there any questions for Mr. Mano? We'll move on to our Safety and Transportation Committee, Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no report.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mrs. Sabetta? Board of Zoning Appeals, Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you again. And again, we did not meet, so I do not have a report.
Thank you. We will now move on to Planning Commission, Mr. Balistrea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a report. Planning Commission met last week. Council should have been copied on the minutes. As a result of that meeting, we have one motion on the agenda tonight. We did have one other item on the agenda for Planning Commission. That was tabled pending an opinion from the law director. So that will stay on the table until we get that opinion. And that's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Balestrea. Are there any questions for Mr. Balestrea? Okay. We will now move on to comments from the public. Pursuant to City Code, each person will be given 5 minutes to speak, with a maximum of 30 minutes allotted for the entire public portion. Although this is not a time for public debate, it is your opportunity to address council with your concerns. Please know there will be no personal attacks or comments allowed. Also, if you are here in connection with an agenda item, this is your opportunity to address council. If you would like to be heard this evening, please step forward to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and be recognized. It is now 7:27 p.m., and I will open the public portion.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I'm Kathy Tobin, and I live at 6470 Gates Mills Boulevard. This is my second time at council. I might become a regular, I don't know.
It's a good thing.
I was at the input, and I want to say thank you for providing that vehicle to provide input. And I have had a good conversation with Sean before that, and even this morning he called to follow up. So I appreciate that kind of service. I don't know how many of you were there. And so my purpose in coming is that I've had time to think about what happened, and I have some other thoughts that I'd like to share with all of you. So again, I don't know how many of you were there. Okay, a few. And I don't think there were notes taken, is my understanding. Is that true?
Yeah, there was no...
There were no notes, which is kind of kind of interesting. So there were about six themes that I took away from there, and I just wanted to highlight them very quickly. And I'm putting my clock here. The first one was safety. And safety showed up in a number of ways. Safety was about the landscaping, so that people could be seen and not feel that they're unsafe, and actually, not feel safe being out there, that you could see people. There was safety about people coming that they didn't think should be there, and also the traffic and the speeding that goes on that, and concern about children running into the street because people are speeding. And so I want to offer a suggestion about that as I thought about it. The police sometimes try to be on that street to catch people who are speeding, but there's no place for them to be very well. They are either in somebody's driveway or they're on my tree lawn. And I've had conversations with them about being on my tree lawn. And so if you may move forward on something, it would be nice to consider having a place for police to be on 91 and Cedar, so that they can police that area and give speeding tickets and be present in that area, just in general. I mean, just in general. The other thing is, and they could actually walk the path if they wanted to on break. The other one was parking. And I know you took the parking away, which was great. We don't want parking lots there. But there's also talk about people parking who would like to be the area and come. I think the one thing that I took away from that meeting that I never heard before in all of this is that perhaps this is really a place for the people in that area to have, because we don't have a place in that area. And so if this area is really positioned as this is really done to bring that community together, and people can join, I encourage you to really think about has continuity across the boulevard. It shouldn't look like, we're in Mayfield Heights. It should look like, this is actually planned. And that would be continuity in material and continuity in crossover. And I'm also curious why it's only one path and not a circle, something that actually is easier to walk. Sean tells me that, well, there'd probably be a loop on the end, so you're not just walking, turning around and walking back. There would be a loop. But that it would probably be less than a mile. And I thought, why should it be less than a mile? If you have control of the area, make sure it's at least a mile. And the other thing I had was future. There was real fear about the future because of the previous proposal of having everything there. So people are concerned that if we do this, when you're going to come back and add other things. There you go. Almost done. And so that's the other piece is the future. And I also shared with Sean, and I'll gladly share with you, for a living, I actually create and run. I can share some best practices for you to run some meetings like you did the other night. And if you'd like, so I told him I'd share it with him. He said he's open to that. And so I will put that together because it could have been a much more effective meeting.
Thank you so much for speaking. Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I'm Maureen Reich from 6528 Long Ridge Road, and I also am here to talk about the trail along Gates Mills Boulevard. I am in support of this trail. I have asked for this trail for 23 years, as long as we've been living in our home on Long Ridge. One of the things we love about our neighborhood is that it feels like a Leave It to Beaver neighborhood from the 1950s. I live on a corner, and people walk with their children, and they walk with their dogs, and they feel safe, and they walk around our little loop, which is about a mile, and we see them all the time. Usually I only know their dogs' names and their parents, just the dog parents. But it's a wonderful walking community filled with families. And I believe that the families in this neighborhood, the young families in this whole neighborhood, is becoming younger and younger all the time. But this neighborhood is one that wants to expand that and have a little bit more green space. So it would be very nice to be able to go over to Gates Mills Boulevard and walk along the trail there as well and incorporate that into our neighborhood. We have dog walkers, we have children, we have parents with strollers, and we have casual bike riders. I'm also a casual bike rider. I'm not a very good bike rider, and I'm afraid of riding on Gates Mills Boulevard. So my typical ride is go up to Gates Mills, to the circle, get off the circle as fast as possible, over to Somme, and then go down Dorchester and go through all the back roads back there, and then on my way home. And I come back up Gates Mills in the Gates Mills section because that feels much safer. So whatever we can do to maybe put some traffic calming measures in the future, I think would be a great idea, because I do think the speeding is a problem. But I believe that this park, I don't even know if you want to call it a park, it's a trail. It's going to be a beautiful amenity and a beautiful addition to our neighborhood. Other neighborhoods that put these kinds of trails in, like Beechwood and Mayfield Village, Orange Village, Shaker Heights, all of their home values have increased. You can see the families out on the trails all the time enjoying themselves. I happen to work for the city of Hudson, and we know that Hudson is a very wealthy town, and they're putting $21 million into a trails and connectivity plan. That's been authorized, and everyone in the city is very excited about it. So this is something that all towns in the area seem to really want to do, is connect people and build that community. And one other thing I want to say, because I've heard this about the fear of other people walking in front of your houses. And I just want to let people know that my entire life, I've always lived in a house that had a sidewalk in front of it. And not once ever have I thought that that person walking in front of my house is a stranger that I should be afraid of. They're people in my community. I don't think we need to be afraid of people walking on sidewalks in front of my house. I often leave my neighborhood and walk my dogs and go over to Woodhawk. I walk down the street on Woodhawk and people wave at me. They don't know me. I don't live in their neighborhood. I also see people from Woodhawk walking in my neighborhood. They walk past my house and I say hello. That's what a neighborhood is, and that's what this trail is going to do. It's just going to bring us together as a neighborhood. So that's it. I thank you very much for listening, and I know that you're not voting tonight, but I do hope that you'll consider this. I think it's going to be a great improvement to our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Ashley Moses, and I live on 6521 Longridge Road. I've lived on Longridge Road for 13 years now. I have 2 small children, one which was here earlier, who's almost 3, and I have a 6-year-old. My husband grew up visiting his grandparents in our same house. We are a very active family and enjoy walking, running, and biking around our neighborhood. For years now, I have run around Mayfield Heights, and running down Gates Mills Boulevard is terrifying and very unsafe. Running in the median as it is currently is also not safe, as it's uneven and often overgrown in the summer. We cannot safely walk or bike with children down Gates Mills Boulevard either. We cannot safely connect to the rest of the sidewalks that are going down Somme to get to the rest of Mayfield Heights. This is something we would love to be able to do, especially with the new pool, parks, and community center coming. Our neighborhood is full of young families and people with dogs who walk frequently. Being able to safely connect to the rest of Mayfield Heights would benefit so many people. I'll be honest, the lack of willingness to bring change to our city has made my husband and I consider moving. And I know we are not alone in this thought. I'm very active in our community, and I honestly feel like we accommodate our aging population very well. But when it comes to the younger families and potential new families, I feel like Mayfield Heights is always hesitant to change, and the voices of the aging population are heard over ours. I really hope to see this plan come to fruition. Please don't only listen to the few naysayers who are grasping at straws for their reasons to be against this. Change is not always a bad thing. Change doesn't equate to violence, drugs, and loitering. The main people utilizing this trail will be the residents who live over there. There won't be droves of people flocking here to park and clog our streets. There won't be drugs and violence. Just call our surrounding communities' police departments who have trails near their homes and ask them. What there will be are families with children and dogs who live there, walking, biking, and enjoying the beautiful natural space that is there safely. Families connecting to the rest of Mayfield Heights safely. I encourage you to reach out to me if you have any other concerns to talk to me about. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moses. Please state your name and address for the record.
I'm Lindley Sarver, 1650 Chelmsford Road. Most of you might have gotten a picture of my son and I on our bicycle this week. We love using it as transportation to get around our community, even though it's hard and terrifying as it is right now. We've started using Gates Mills Boulevard to get to playgrounds in Beechwood, which is really fun. Once you get there, the getting there is the hard part. So we're asking you to support this trail to make it a little bit safer and easier to get around our community. I'll also speak for all the moms in that neighborhood that I've talked to with young kids who really want this, so that they can get out and walk. This city is all of ours, and I hope that you'll make this decision that supports equitable leisure and transportation for our community as a whole, rather than bending to a few people who feel that they have greater rights to this particular piece of city property. So thank you for considering.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sarver. Then, please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name's Mary Ann Ellen, and I live at 33389 Cedar Road. I second what the last 3 people just said, actually the last 4 people. I have been a strong advocate for this project, as well as making sidewalks accessible to all residents in Mayfield Heights. We are all taxpayers, and we should all benefit from sidewalks and trails. You know, if you go to your doctor, they're going to ask you, how many steps are you taking a day? I want to take more steps, but I don't have access from where I live. I have to go to either Gilmore Academy, I have to walk on the grass to get to Woodhawk, or I have to walk on the grass to get to Long Ridge or Marshfield. But I can't walk anywhere safely. I can't ride my bike safely. I can't walk my dog. My kids can't have safe access. This project is something that our city needs for all of the stated reasons. I'm here to represent other residents of the city that are not here tonight. For example, residents of Kingswood, Annandale, Hansford, Som Center, Cedar Road. There's nobody here. We don't have access to, the amenities, the sidewalks, the trails that are being proposed. I also want to say that, we were awarded this grant for this project. I work for Cuyahoga County. I'm currently administering a federal grant. I know how hard it is to get a grant. It would be shameful of us to let this grant go to waste and not utilize it. This is money on the table to benefit the residents. This would benefit all of the residents. There's a couple, maybe 20, 30 people in this city that are against it. There's thousands that are for it. So please consider the safety of our children, the future, the property values. There's many, 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 many reasons why this is a beneficial project, and I'm here to represent hundreds of residents that are not here tonight that are also in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor. Am I in front of the microphone? I can't tell.
The-
Oh, it's this one? Oh.
Yeah, there you go.
Good evening, Mayor and council people. My name is Judy Bollinger, and I live at 6457 Gates Mills Boulevard. I'm a newbie, and I'm also a corporate writer, not a speaker, so I am so nervous. We lived for between 30 and 40 years, we lived in Beechwood, and we just moved here 2 years ago. I needed a ranch, and there was none available in Beechwood, and I knew I had to leave, and I didn't really care what community I came to. But when I bought our house, a ranch with a wooded backyard, fenced in for my 2 dogs, and then I heard there was going to be a park in my front yard, I thought I had died and gone to heaven. This is such a wonderful thing. I know there is a small group of people who oppose to it. Let me tell you that in Beechwood, I know in East Shaker went in, and then West Shaker went in, or the other way around. I never know my East from West, but anyway. There was never any objection. People looked forward to it. It is wonderful. It is a place where people who are health conscious come to work out. They walk, they run, they ride their bicycles, they walk their dogs, they walk their babies. And I used to take, when I was well, I would take the walk, and then I'd sit on a bench and watch the families go by. I especially love the twins in strollers. But it is a family-oriented place. It's a healthy place. It's also a connection. It's connective. I just had a long talk with Justin Birds, the mayor-elect of Beechwood, and he also talked about how he runs. It's I think from Beechwood, from Cedar to Shaker, I think it's 2-point-something miles. He runs that almost every week. And he said it's a great connection because all of these trails, when Pepper Pike puts theirs in, they're all going to connect. This is a healthy place and a wonderful place, and I just hope you'll vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nathan Purdom, 6090 Westerham Road. As a resident of Mayfield Heights, I had the pleasure of casting my vote for many of you recently, and congratulations. As council members, you are wards of our city. You are supposed to have a strategic view of where we stand regionally and where we will be moving forward to in the future. Judging by most standards, outside our school system, we have very little to offer in regards to public amenities. Unless you really love bocce, we have a city lacking in recreational and community gathering opportunities. That is why my family buys their season pool pass in Mayfield Village. We join the Mayfield Village Running Club and their Pee Wee baseball team, and even their hip-hop dance classes. We play at Highland Heights or Pepper Pike Parks. I live 1 block away from our city park, and we can never go there because it is wet, soggy, and unusable. And to say that this city is unfriendly to pedestrians, joggers, bikers, and dog walkers is an understatement. As wards of this city, you are responsible for and answerable to all residents of this city, and you should be acting in the best interests of all of Mayfield Heights. You were not elected by 50% or less of the residents living on Gates Mills Boulevard. I'm sure they counted for something, but they are a small segment of Mayfield Heights. I have watched in awe while we have allowed a small group of disgruntled people to refuse a park for all of Mayfield Heights on public land owned by Mayfield Heights. A park which would cost us under $100,000 and would have been a substantial investment to our community. So why do I care? I care because Mayfield got me to vote on a historic income tax increase, and your slogan became promises made, promises kept. To allow historic development that Mayfield has never seen, connecting our city with walkable paths and upgrading all public amenities. Swimming pools and community centers are not truly public. They are fee-based, and that will exclude many of our poorest residents. What is free and usable for more than a few months a year is parks and trails, connection paths that will bring us together and form a community. Please stop enabling small segments of our city who seek to carve Mayfield out into some sort of a fiefdom. We have already given so much to this small group of disgruntled residents who clearly do not want to connect with Mayfield in any real way. If you do not authorize and use the funds set aside for the state and we forfeit on this project, the likelihood of continuing to get state funds for all of the connector trails may evaporate. You, this city council, will leave a legacy of squandering a historic opportunity to unite the city and provide a major draw on amenity because a handful of people didn't want a sidewalk with no parking spaces down the middle of our boulevard. Remember, you are the wards of the entire city. If you do not build this walking trail, which is literally the bare minimum, and that leads to all of our connector paths being shut down in the city because we cannot secure the necessary state grants, how did you do your job and act in all of Mayfield's best interest? Please, act in Mayfield's best interest. Elevate the city by encouraging those who seek to come together and not enabling those who would keep us apart. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Purdom.
Good evening. My name is Frank Leone. I live at 6571 Gates Mills Boulevard, Mayfield Heights. I've been a resident of Mayfield Heights for 27 years. My wife over 45 years. I've sent all of council an email for council to vote against the trail meeting. I hope you received it. If you have not, please contact me after the meeting and we can get that email to you. So I also attended the trails meeting as well, and personally it should have been canceled, okay? What we were told initially was that it was to include a trail and all these other amenities, okay? When we came into the meeting, all of a sudden it changed. And again, I have a dear respect for Sean and Anthony, as they know, but at the end of the day, it should have been canceled. The folks on Gates Mills Boulevard were told that the meeting was to be held by them, and you can hear our voices and so forth. So as I indicated, there's quite a few residents that did not receive proper notice or disclosure. It also did not comply with American with Disabilities Act, as well as any form of federal, state, and city local communications laws. I guarantee that, and the law director can obviously look into it as well. With that being said, the plan just totally changed. And the folks at the meeting, quite a few of them, maybe 65%, were not even from the area. I can tell you by living there as long as I have, there are a ton of traffic, safety. I do believe there'd be environmental issues, as well as the parking, as they indicated, which they said they called off the table. What they don't understand, this is a public trail. People could come from wherever. You can't stop them. This is not going to be our private little community trail. It's public. Public means people could come in from all over. That already has high traffic. It's going to have more. There's a lot of safety issues there. I raise kids on the boulevard. I never let them play in the median because I've seen the accidents. I've seen cars jump the curbs into the median. I'm calling the police on drunk drivers, kids in the wintertime, slamming into the median. I've seen bike riders get into serious accidents. It's only 3/4 of a mile. I've watched the videos of Orange, Beechwood, Shaker. Those areas are not like ours. They're hidden off of Shaker Boulevard. They're wide, they're big in scope and dynamics and demographics. We are not that. I bought my home there because of the green space. I could literally fill this room tonight with all the people voting against this. I could probably fill Mayfield High School with all the people that would want to vote against this. Bottom line is you have got to prepare a good plan, okay? If you're going to change the initial project from what was on the website, you have to give proper notice, okay? And then you have to change the meeting, give us some information, show us a traffic study, show us a safety study, show us an environmental study, show me a pro forma expense statement on the maintenance costs of it. I could tell you right now, it's difficult to maintain Gates Mills Boulevard. Very difficult. And Anthony, you know this. There is so much work involved in it. And you're going to put a trail in and try, as this very kind lady indicated, try to maintain it. You think it's only going to cost $95,000? We get the grant, the city's only going to pay $95,000. There's so many more costs involved. Show us all what that means. Provide full disclosure. I think that's so important. I'd also like to say that I personally think that if you want a trail like that, you get in your car and you go to a trail like that, okay? I took my kids to the park. I put them in a car and I took them to the park if I wanted to get to a park. People think over time, well, how are they going to get there? Crosswalks. Do you think someone's going to follow a crosswalk? People right now, if they're walking, they're just going to cut across. They don't care. They don't care. There will always be overfull parking on Long Ridge and Marshfield. Those cars will be backed up for miles. Already when I see that happen, it creates one lane in and out, even on Kingswood. This has to be very well thought out. It's very dangerous. We do not need this. We continue to need green space in Mayfield. We got a ton of businesses. Focus on Mayfield Park. Make that nice. If you want to build a trail in Mayfield Park, build it there. Make a loop. Fantastic. Focus on the rentals in Mayfield. Focus on the businesses. Focus on safety. And finally, I will say, if any of you want to come to my house, 6571 Gates Mills Boulevard, please come to my house. We'll walk the area. You'll see what I see, and you'll understand what I'm talking about to vote against it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Leone. Is there anyone else that wants to speak? It is 7:55, and we will now close the public portion. I thought, sorry. We'll close the public portion at 7:55 p.m. As we have no resolutions this evening, we'll move on to our ordinances. Ordinance 2021-36, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ordinance number 2021-36, an ordinance making appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Mayfield Heights, State of Ohio, during the fiscal year ending December 31, 2022, and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Balistrea, seconded by Mrs. Sabetta. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Mano. Mr. Balstrea.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Can we do it?
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mr. Monaco.
I abstain as I wasn't present during this process.
Mrs. Teresi.
No. Can I do a motion to keep, yeah, is there a motion to keep it on first reading?
Moved.
Thanks, that's what I was, yeah. Moved by
need a
Mr. Man. We don't, it is on first
It's
reading.
on first reading.
It is on, yeah, that's what I thought. Mr. DeJohn.
Is this what was referred to committee? Okay.
Yes.
So
So,
it's got to go on first reading, was referred to.
well, and
committee by
Mr. Murphy
Mr.
reads it, it's already on
Balestria,
first
yeah, so-
reading. So, we can be done with this, Mr. Murphy. That's good. Okay. We're going to move on to our next ordinance, 2021-37. Mr. Murphy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ordinance number 2021-37, an ordinance amending the original appropriations ordinance number 2020-31 for the current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Mayfield Heights, Ohio, for the fiscal year ending December 31, 2021, as previously amended by ordinance number 2021-12 and 2021-25, specifically the transfer and supplemental appropriations of funds in various accounts and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Is there a motion to keep ordinance 2021-37 on first reading?
Move.
Need a motion.
We don't. We don't need a motion. A roll call?
No, it's on first, it's been read. If there's a motion to suspend the rules, then you can proceed. But if there's no motion, then continue with the agenda.
That's it?
That's it.
That's it?
It's on
It's on first reading. It's so weird changing that.
Well, that was changed, yeah,
Yeah,
a month,
that's-
6 weeks ago.
Yes,
So
it was.
Takes some getting used to.
It sure does. Okay. We will now move on to motions. We have motion A. Mr. Murphy.
Motion to approve the final site plan for a new 18,000 square foot, one-story building for Apex Skin Medical Office Building at 29111 Cedar Road.
Do I have a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Balestrea.
Second?
Second by Mrs. Sabetta. We all received the new site plan. Changed the ingress and egress on Cedar. Mr. Balestrea, would you like to add anything?
Yes, thank you. That was the only change. There was a discrepancy, if you recall, Council. We had originally requested a preliminary and a final site plan, but then we pulled back because we noticed that there was a difference in the plan with the ingress and egress on Cedar Road. The applicant came back and made the change as to per the original plan. And so Planning Commission then approved the final plan.
Thank you. Any comments, questions? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes.
Mr. Monaco?
Yes.
Mr. Mano?
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn?
Yes.
Mr. Balestria?
Yes.
Mrs. Teresi?
Yes, this motion has been carried. We'll move to new business or comments from Consul. Anyone have anything to share?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr.
I'd
Ronico.
like to make a motion to allow the residents of Gizmos Boulevard, just the abutting residents, to vote on this very different issue here regarding the trail. I know that, again, there are very emotional people there, and I think that we should have a drawing showing exactly what's going there. The residents should be mailed that and should have an opportunity to vote and to create their own destiny, pretty much.
I will second that.
Okay, seconded by Mr. Mano. Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Balestria?
I'd ask for just a clarification. I'm not sure what Mr. Monaco's asking
Requesting.
and if it's actually appropriate as far as council procedures go. Are you asking for a meeting,
I'm
a
asking
separate meeting, or?
I'm asking for the residents, abutting residents on Gizmos Boulevard to be notified of this project and to have the opportunity to vote whether they want a trail in front of their property on the boulevard or not.
So we can do a motion.
Madam President,
So,
probably can be done by petition, I'm assuming, right?
can it be
Mr.
done by
Murphy?
petition? Mr. Murphy, you better weigh in here.
The motion is, if I could maybe restate it so I can understand it better, is to solicit the opinion of every resident on Gates Mills Boulevard as to whether or not they want a all-purpose trail along the median on Gates Mills Boulevard?
But what I'm asking is more than an opinion, to have the opportunity to vote on whether they want such a trail or they do not want a trail.
You realize such a vote would be meaningless. That it wouldn't hold any water, let's put it that way.
Okay, can we at
Even
least-
if everybody on Gates Mills Boulevard voted in favor of the trail, it would be up to council to determine at some point in time whether or not to build the trail. That's
Understand that.
council's prerogative, not the residents.
I would have a better opinion at that time as to what their wish is, because right now, we have people from Westerham and from Cedar
Chelmsford.
Road that really have nothing to do with the trail and the boulevard. I mean, they're not the ones that are gonna get up in the morning and look across the street and see trails, see people walking there. The people whose property is directly affected is the people who live up and down the boulevard. And there's probably about 40, 50 homes there. And I would like for them to be notified and to express their opinion in writing after we have a plan as exactly what's going there, and they'll have the opportunity to look at it, and then they will have the opportunity to decide. And maybe they can, after we have that information, then maybe we have a better idea of how we should vote on it.
Okay. That motion, as far as I could see, would be proper to poll the residents on Gates Mills Boulevard between Som and Cedar.
Correct. On both sides.
In the city of
On
Mayfield.
the north and south side, yes.
To determine how they feel about it. Yeah, that's, take a poll like that, as long as you understand that council is not bound by what they say, yes or no.
Understood.
Because council votes for the entire city.
Yes.
Not just for
Yes.
one street. Okay.
Madam
Yeah.
Chair, if I could.
Yes, Mayor.
I don't think it's a bad idea. I think it would make them feel more comfortable that their opinion was heard. The part that would be disturbing to me is that if you let those residents on Gates Mills Boulevard decide whether that trail goes in or not. Because as you heard from the residents who are here, not only did you hear from the residents who are here who are in favor of it, it's not just for those residents on Gates Mills Boulevard to decide whether that trail goes in or not. It's a community project. It's public land. I think it's a good idea to let them express their opinions, but to let them decide, I think is wrong. I really do.
Mayor Chairman, may I?
Yes, Mr. Monaco.
This is not much different than the giant slide going behind somebody's house, and at that time, you notified all the people, and you had a meeting with them, telling them that this slide was going there. This is pretty much the same thing. I think those people have a right to know what's being built in front of their house.
Madam Chair, which we did. Everybody on Gates Mills Boulevard received a notification of that meeting. So they all had the opportunity to come to that meeting or voice their opinions. They were all hand-delivered notices to their homes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Well, we could put it on the ballot for a vote if we had that kind of time, and I don't know if we have that kind of time. I'd like to ask Sean if we do. We could put this on next November's ballot and let the residents of Mayfield Heights vote on a trail system.
We could do that. Is
Well,
that
with
grand?
all due respect, though, it's not the citizens who vote on it, it's council who are the representatives of the citizens who are charged with voting on
I
it.
understand that, but
Oh,
we
okay.
could refer, we could refer to the voters. And Mayor made his point, you know, this concerns not only the people on Gates Mills Boulevard, but all the rest of the citizens in Mayfield Heights. Well, let's see what all the citizens in Mayfield Heights think about it.
We will lose the grant by then.
When is the
Well-
expiration of this grant?
Yeah, can somebody produce that for me, please?
Absolutely, Mr. DeJohn. We have to, oh boy, I forget the exact dates, but we have to move within I think it's the first half of next year. But I'll get you that.
And is this grant the same grant that we went after before when we were talking about restrooms, park benches? Is this a
Correct. It's a
totally
grant that-
new grant?
It's a grant that council approved, yeah.
Mr. Gerson?
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, you know that timeline too, I'm sorry.
Forgot Mr. Gerson was here.
So I'll just try to fill in from what I think I know. I'll check on the timeline. I understand it's got to be built next year, so you'd be arguably designing it through the winter months, sending it out for bid during the early spring, and then constructing during summer, but I'll check on those timelines. From what I understand, the grant was authorized by Council 2020, early 2020. With COVID and whatnot, I believe they got approval in early 2021. I think March 2021 is when we received authorization for the grant. The project's about an $800,000 project, just shy of $500,000 in grant money. I think $117,000 is coming from community cost share, and the rest would come from city funds, whether it's cash or whether it's in-kind monies. The plan was presented, and I could share that with you, that probably would give you most of the details on the trail, but essentially it's a trail that goes from Cedar Road to Som Center. I believe it's a 10-foot wide asphalt trail, has some landscaping. I think the amenities that probably get confusing or maybe objectionable would be, there was one parking area, I believe, in the center one, which was near Kingswood. There was parking on either side of that median. I know that was one of the objectionable things. It did have some benches, did have pet waste stations, had some signage basically showing, hey, how far to the pool, how far back, and then it had trash cans. There were no bathrooms, there was no lighting, there's no, I think some of the other things, there was a second grant that was requested to apply for, and that came later, which was turned down by council. That had the, if you remember, they were talking about a playground in the area. They had a bathroom. I think they had some other lighting, I think was one of the amenities that was turned down by council and that wasn't applied for. So we can check the dates on it. I think with respect to Mr. Monaco, I think the question is I think it's been, the question is we applied for the grant. We received the grant for those amenities I said, the trail, the landscaping, the parking, the benches, the trash cans, the pet waste stations, and the signage. I believe you can narrow those things down. In other words, if parking is one of the things that are most objectionable, you can get rid of the parking. But you got to be careful that you don't weed this trail down so much that you have a $500,000 grant, you don't spend $500,000, you're not going to get, there's a match to it. So in other words, if you have $500,000 they granted, you have to do your match to get that money. So I think the general aspect of the trail, the exact location is not decided, but there is a kind of a rendering of where it would go. So I think that's probably what you'd be wanting to look at and at least send to the residents. So I don't know if that helps you kind of, I'll try to answer questions. I don't know all the details on it, but I'll try to answer what I could for you. That'll help.
Mr. Gerson, didn't we have this discussion a while back where everyone said they did not want, the parking or the benches or the trash cans or whatever? And I take notes while the meetings go on, and I'm wondering, didn't we say that if we took some of that stuff out, we might not get the grant? I mean,
Yeah, and I
Yeah, I-
apologize, I'm not familiar with that, but it possibly could be. I don't remember those conversations. Like I say, I wasn't completely involved in it, but there were two grants that we're going after. One is the one that you have, which basically has the trail, landscaping, has trash cans, has benches, and has parking and pet waste stations. That grant you've applied for and you received, and in the cost estimate showed all those items. That was approved by council. The second grant, which came out, which was a lot of the secondary amenities, and I think it came out probably a couple months after the first grant. That was the one where you had a lot of people come in and not want it, and that was not applied for or not obviously received. It wasn't applied for. So I think you can weed some of those things out, given where you want to be, but that's really, it's up to council to decide how you want to proceed. But I think, you've asked for a grant, you were awarded a grant. I would just be careful of, if you don't choose that grant, there's a lot of communities that, would have asked for that money and maybe would have been given that money if you didn't ask for it. So it's, we're kind of going back, but that's up to you guys to decide.
Okay,
We'll help you
I
wherever
just
we
need
can
a
for it.
little clarification there.
Mr. Mano.
Madam Chairman, this idea, in my estimation, my opinion, is ill-conceived, and it's at the wrong place at the wrong time. It defies logic. You're going to take a section of this city that's in an isolated area under the guise of connectivity. I don't know what the hell you're connecting to. What would make more sense is to go east on Gates Mills Boulevard, down to River Road, across River Road to the Metro Park. What you're trying to do here is create something that you really don't have a pathway, a reasonable, logical pathway to get from point A to point B. You're never going to access the city parks. You're not going to access the pool unless you get your butt in a car and drive over to where it's located. Trail along Som Center Road is ridiculous. The traffic on that street is unbelievable. You want to come down Marceau, how are you going to get the right-of-way on either side of that street? And what do you do when you get to the bridge? Go out into the street? What do you do there? Now, we had this thing happen on Marceau with all this stuff that Nowaka sold us about the beautification and so on. What they did there, number one, is incomplete because the lighting has not been addressed. Winter's coming, and I get phone calls all the time from people who are afraid to walk there at night. Number two, it's turned into a gigantic garbage can on both sides of the wall. These things need to be thought out, and all the ramifications need to be thought about before we go ahead and do these things. Mr. Monaco's idea of consulting with those people on the boulevard, which is who should have been at that meeting the other night, not the padding of the room. Those are the people with the big stake in it. Mr. DeJohn's idea of polling the whole community is not right either, because you're going to have people who live on the north side of the city. Oh, yeah, another park? Sure, why not? You can't do that. Those people on the boulevard bought those properties, paid a premium for them so they could have their serenity and solitude. Now, you want to take that away from them for a handful of people who claim that they will use that thing every day and they'll walk their kids and they'll do this and that. That one woman was talking about running the stroller on Gates Mills Boulevard. If I was a cop, I'd give her a ticket for child endangering. Who in their right mind would put a stroller on Gates Mills Boulevard? It would make more sense if people want to walk on the boulevard, put in a pathway of asphalt or sidewalk on either side of that street. Leave the median alone. Just getting to the median from anywhere else on Gates Mills Boulevard is hazardous. And parking is the thing. Nobody wants parking there. Where are people going to where are they gonna park when they wanna go there to use the path? And that's why I said it's ill-conceived, it defies logic. It makes no sense to spend the money on an isolated piece of land for the benefit of a handful of people. It's ridiculous.
Thank you. Mr. DeJohn?
Mr. Gerson, can we apply for an extension on that grant?
Please.
I don't know. I can try to find out.
Can you find out from?
You got up to tell us, I don't know.
Wanted to give you an answer. I don't know. I could ask.
Mr. Balistreo?
Stay there, Dan. I'm a little confused because my understanding was with the first grant, that was just basically for the trail, which council had approved. But you're saying that grant included benches, parking, doggy stations, and whatever. Okay. My understanding was that was all in the second grant, and it's not. Because we already told the residents that the first grant was approved by this council, and it consisted of the trail only, and that there would be no parking and would be no benches. And so, looking back on that, if this were to go forward, then that grant would not be valid because we're applying for things that we're not putting in. And we would have to amend that. Am I understanding that correctly? Either Mayor can
We
answer.
don't, correct me if I'm wrong, we don't have to amend the grant. We just have to spend that money, and if you don't spend it, by taking things out, if we don't get to a certain number, then that's when we run into a problem. But I don't think that's going to be a problem with the few things that we're taking out.
Yeah, so the process, so just to step back, the grant that was approved by council, and
Right.
there was a presentation that did have the parking, it had a rendering of the parking, and it had the cost estimate of the parking and where the costs were going. We could share that with you. That was presented. Now, that was the first grant.
Right.
In terms of what can be in this, what cannot, clearly it's got to have a trail if you're going to ask for the money. Now, whether if you showed 3 trash cans and you're going to put 0, that would be a change. But if you're going to show 3 and you plan on 3 and you're going to put 5, that's not a change. The process is that if you so choose to go forward, the next step would be to authorize design of the trail, whatever that trail may be. Now, you can give us direction, or wherever you have designed it, you can give them direction if you so choose to move forward at this point. Once the trail's designed, that plan has to go to the ODNR for approval, and they would look at it and say, okay, yeah, that follows what we were doing. Or for instance, let's say if the grant was a 10-foot wide trail and you put sidewalks on either side of the street, that would be probably a substantial change. So there's a process that would have to be approved. Now, I can't sit here and tell you that for sure that if we took out parking that they're going to have a problem. We could call and ask that fairly quickly, and I think you'd get an answer. If you ask my opinion, I would say they're probably not going to object if you take the parking out for those specific reasons. Now, if you said, give me $500,000 and we're going to plant some trees, that's it, they're not going to approve that, but I'd be pretty confident they'd say no. So however you want to move forward with that, you could so choose however you want, but I would say there's probably some timelines coming up that you'd want to meet. I can find out what those timelines are. I can check and see if it can be extended timeline. I'm not sure of those answers for sure, but I can try to find those out for you. And I can also ask if we eliminate some of those items in that grant, what would happen. And I think probably the things I've heard, at least mostly, would be the parking for sure, the trash cans, the benches maybe. But I would just say that if it is used, I would generally say you might want to have some trash cans, just so that people don't, it's hard enough trying to get people to throw stuff in the trash can. And if there's not a trash can, then they do it anyways. But as you probably know, so.
Madam Chair, if I could.
Mayor.
I do take exception to the notion that it's ill-conceived, we've been talking about a trails program that we showed council, boy, I forget how many years ago it was, and it was all connectivity then. And it was to connect all parts of the city to our new pool, our new park, and to the businesses in the city. So that was all laid out and showed to council, Mr. Mano. It was pretty extensive, actually. And the plan for Gates Mills Boulevard Trail to come down Sam to Marsal has all been thought out and been kind of sketched out and thought out pretty extensively to the point where, you know, we think we could make it happen. With more grants and city investment, of course, but we have a plan for the whole city, connectivity-wise. That was shown to council.
1 year ago.
No, it wasn't 1 year. It was longer than that,
Oh, was
wasn't
it?
it?
I
Well-
think it was 2018 it
When
started.
it first
The
started.
Greenway Trails and all
Yeah.
those meetings that we had with the residents, we had quite a few. Yeah.
And then 1 year ago, November 9th of 2020, we talked with, there was a meeting where we discussed this grant. And we had a lot of people that came that evening. I have like all these notes. Ashley Moses came, Mr. Ward, somebody from Gates Mills Boulevard in Kingswood, 58-year resident also came. And we talked about the same, I think, the same grant. And we talked about, everyone said the same about catching speeders. They don't want a playground in front of their house, bathrooms. I mean, all of this was, you know, it's,
That's why we took them out.
Yeah,
We listened to
that's-
their objections, and we removed the things that,
or pavilion,
yeah,
parking
that
lots,
they felt that,
benches.
right, that's why those things were all removed from the plan. Well, but the meeting, to overcome the objections, to change the plan to just a trail. That's what I mean.
I would rather use our city money to help Mayland. Well, $100,000 isn't going to do the trick, but, I mean, I think that could be, money could be better spent to make Mayland something special instead of what it has been for 50 years. I know we have to count on Mrs. Fagan for that. Yeah, it is. It's just money.
Okay, so we were awarded.
Madam Chair?
So do we want to, yeah, Mr. Monaco?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I've had few visitors in my house and few phone calls from people that live on the boulevard. And, you know, their biggest complaint was that they were not notified properly. They said that they had a notice that was attached to their mailbox, and it was windy and it was rain, and a lot of them got lost. When they showed up to the meeting, they said that they really didn't know exactly what they were expecting. I think that if we develop some kind of drawing and show them exactly what we're gonna do and how that path is kind of, you know, it's not gonna be on the north or the south side of the boulevard. I think it's just gonna kind of serpentine through one way or the other. I think if it's nice design and it's properly proposed to them, I think that, you know, most of the people there will be receptive. It's just that at this point, there's a major confusion out there.
Well, if I could, Madam Chair. So the next step is going to be to have the actual design done, correct? Why don't you just stay there?
Yes, Mayor. Yeah, so the next step is, you know, to.
Which would be council have to approve that.
Yeah, and we're preparing a proposal that would be for your approval or denial. It doesn't have to be us to do it, it's just typically we do most of your projects. So if you didn't like us doing it, you could choose somebody else, or you didn't like the proposal, you could choose somebody else. That would be essentially the next step.
But we could use that design to show the residents. A more
Yeah.
current, up-to-date, with what we're talking about.
Yeah, and I think one of the things we would ask, one of the things we want to do is want to get the survey done so we can see where all the sewers are, where the low spots are, where the curbs are, where some of these connectivity areas would be, or where the problem areas are, and then now we would develop, now what I would say is, if 6 of the council members said, hey, I wanted something, if you could tell me that up front so we could, make sure it's in the design, versus if you didn't want that, I don't want to include it in the design, in other words, but I think the trail, exactly where it would go, that would be developed in the design, and ultimately, I guess even, not to be a naysayer, but even at some point, if you, I don't want you guys spending the money on the design if you're not gonna go move forward with it, but you could arguably spend money on design and then not move forward with it.
You could do.
Stan, so,
You could, I mean, but you'd pay for the design already, it'd be, but
Mr. Mano,
Is it possible to get a listing of what it's going to cost for the engineering, what it's going to cost the city, forget about the grant, the matching funds, and any other expenses the city has to spend to make this thing come to fruition, and an estimate of the cost of maintaining and policing it? Can we get something like that so we have in front of us in black and white what the costs are going to be to put in this trail?
yeah, so what I'll do, next council meeting, if we can have that proposal for the design, that I can pretty much tell you exactly what that design cost is. I control those numbers. The construction of it, as you know, construction's kind of up and down now, but we can give you a good engineer's estimate what we believe the amenities or the trail would cost to build. In terms of maintenance on it, I could probably put something together on that. I don't really look at the maintenance of it, but obviously that's a concern. And then the policing, I think that's something that administration probably have to help us with. But I think that makes sense. I can also bring that rendering. I kind of showed the trail where it was at least intended initially to go. Again, it's not saying that's where exactly it would go. We'd put it in the best location based on the design, but I think that might help, and then we can kind of explain where the grants were, what the grant was. That might help you. It'll be a long meeting next meeting, unless you want to do a council of the whole before, however you want to do it.
probably not a bad idea. Thanks, Dan. So let's do a roll call, Shanisha, on the motion in front of us.
State the motion, please.
State the motion.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the motion would be to poll all of the residents, one vote per resident, per residence, I should say, as to whether or not they would want the bike trail down the median, or the all-purpose trail down the median.
All Gates Mills Boulevard residents,
Correct.
not the surrounding area.
No,
the
just
boulevard.
Gates Mills, but
Abiding residents.
right?
Yes.
Just on Gates Mills Boulevard,
That's
whether
his
it's
motion.
40 or 42 or
Yes.
whatever it is.
Could we wait to see what the rendering is and then,
Do we,
Rule
I
on
think
the
we
motion?
have a rendering already.
no, I'm saying, could
We
we?
have a rendering right
Oh,
already,
good.
right, Dan? We have a rendering, and we have the estimated costs technically.
Yeah, so there's a conceptual layout of it. There's a estimated cost that was included in the grant. I could get that to you with the mayor's permission and your permission. I can get that to you hopefully tomorrow in an email if that would help. Give you some information from it, but it's not the
Mayor.
final plan.
Right,
No,
but we don't
right.
have the final plan to show them, which I think it would be better to have what the plan is, not what it was, to show them first.
That's what I'm
That,
saying.
that rendering would show parking. It clearly
Okay,
shows
then
parking.
let's,
because
let's
that's
get
what-
let's get a final plan then.
So the motion's still up there.
Unless Mr. Monaco wanted to withdraw his motion.
Give a final
If
Just
I
to-
withdraw the motion, then could we wait until the final drawing is?
That's what I'm saying, wait till the
Yes.
final drawing, and then you could resubmit your motion, poll them with the new plan, with the final plan, and give them a better rendering of what it's actually gonna look like.
That makes sense. I would withdraw my motion then.
And Mr. Mano, withdraw your second.
Withdrawn.
Madam President.
Mr. DeJean?
So when we say this rendering, is this going to be the final architectural plan? Is that what we're talking about here, where it's going to cost us thousands of dollars to have this architectural plan done? And then it's going to be very hard to say, oh, the residents don't want it after we spend all this money? Do we really want to do that, or do we just want a rendering pretty close to what's going to be there to show the residents?
I think the main focus here is to find out exactly where that path is going to be located. Is it going to be located on the south side? Is it going to be located on the north side of the street? So people would get an idea whether this thing is going to be directly in front of their house or not. I don't think you have to draw that's going to be 10 feet wide. You could just specify that. It's just that they need to know exactly where it's going on the boulevard. We don't need to have a final drawing. You take the parking spots out, and you just show where it's going to be, where it's going to be located.
Yeah,
Sketch, in
so if I could just, so the conceptual plan, it was prepared by AECom. I'll work with AECom. I'll see if they can do that conceptual plan, take out the parking, because that's the only thing it shows. It doesn't show trash cans, I don't think necessarily. And that'll show what could be the location, and it's in the median. It's not on the north side, it's not on the south side of Gates Mills Boulevard. So as it's not in their front yard, it's in the median for sure. That's where the path would go.
But even being in the medium, it's going to be closer to the north side, or it's not going to be in the center of the boulevard. It's going to be on one side or the other, right?
Yeah, and what I would say is that the rendering, the conceptual plan has some thought into it, but it's a conceptual plan. And what I would say is that the design would guide where that median would go. So in other words, whether it went to the north or to the south, like it may go to the north because there's a group of trees that we're trying to avoid so that we don't take them out, because I think most people like healthy trees there. However, if there's where it's going, obviously we want to make a right turn and then another right turn, so it have to have some flow to it. That's where the design would come in. But I think the rendering without the parking that's already there, I would think would give you enough information to poll the residents if you wanted to see if they wanted an up or down vote. I think the only concern going in is, well, what if you get 50-50 or, well, you see what you got. I don't know. I think you'd find out pretty quickly. They're either going to want the trail, they're not going to want the trail. And then all the amenity, the parking, the trash cans, I don't know. I would say if they want the trail, they're probably not concerned about whether it has trash cans necessarily up or down. I don't think that's a make or break thing, but you may find some people don't want the trail no matter
So
what you
there's
put
no
in.
motion, so,
Okay, so
Yeah,
if
so-
I could, real quick.
okay,
We
real quick.
need a,
Real quick.
a conceptual plan to show the residents. To Mr. DeJohn's point, that doesn't involve all the engineering. So something that we could show the residents before we go to them and ask them if they want it. There's something more up to date with more what we're thinking now.
Yeah, what I'll do, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, Madam President. And
Mr.
then
DeJohn.
how are we going to poll them? Are we going to get the city to send them a certified letter? Do we have all those details worked out?
The motion was just made, so it'll be up to the administration to determine how the poll would take. Council's saying poll the residents, so
But we just
the
withdrew the
administration will
motion.
do that. But that's not even on the floor now, so.
So we,
There's nothing on the floor, and a motion to adjourn is,
That's next.
Before we poll them, we'll let council know what we're
Okay.
thinking, and we'll make sure
All right.
you're all right with it.
Just got to get a plan.
Okay, so we
first.
don't need the
Then you-
motion. That was withdrawn. Mr. Monaco, are you okay with how we're going to do this?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Mrs. Fagan, what is she telling us? Oh, okay. Okay, so, thank you, Dan. The motion's off the table. The only thing left is, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sabetta, seconded by,
Second. No.
all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you. Our meeting has been adjourned. I wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving, healthy holiday. We should all be thankful for what we have this year.